Everyone, my name is Chris Chan. I'm the University Librarian at Hong Kong Baptist University, and I also have the privilege of chairing the Learning Strategies Committee of JULAC. For those who don't know, JULAC is the collaborative forum for all of the UGC-funded university libraries here in Hong Kong. And so a warm welcome to this, our fourth event in our JULAC webinar series. This idea to hold webinars on common resources and tools was originally a response to the pandemic, but they've been so successful that we plan to continue running them for the foreseeable future, even though for now, at least, pandemic restrictions have come to an end. Now, for this event, we're so excited to be welcoming Mr. John Seguin, the president and co-founder of Third Iron, LLC. JULAC libraries have been subscribing to Third Iron products for many years, first BrowZine and then later LibKey. I'm a huge fan of both, especially LibKey Nomad, as it really helps to, as we were saying before, break down these barriers between our library's users and the library's paid content, which allows you as a researcher to spend more time actually reading rather than struggling to navigate, paywalls and authentication systems and all of these messy bits, as John describes them. So I'll leave it to John to explain the details, but suffice it to say, I'm now on a mission to get everyone at my university to install the LibKey Nomad extension because it will solve so many issues that the library deals with every day. Please do ask any questions that you have along the way using the Q&A function in Zoom, but at this point, I assume everyone is familiar with how Q&A works in Zoom webinars, and we'll deal with those at the end. So without further ado, let me pass the time on to John. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate that warm welcome. I'm going to set up a little share here. We're going to do a lot of live demos today, but I did have a couple of slides here to just sort of set the stage for what these different services do. As Chris said, I am one of the founders of Third Iron. Very, very happy to be here talking to you all about some of our services. We do make a number of different products. Many of them are actually infrastructure pieces that the library has already integrated and that you may be using right now and not even know it. But hopefully using those tools to simplify your journey to get to full text material. But today we're going to be talking about three tools in particular, BrowZine, LibKey Nomad, and then a little bonus of libkey.io at the very end. That are all end user tools, things that you can download, that you can interact with directly to help you on your research journey. Just a little quick bit about this. Chris mentioned that Hong Kong has, many libraries at Hong Kong have been a subscriber to Third Iron services for a long time. And actually, the first consortia subscription came out of Hong Kong almost 10 years ago. And I've been to Hong Kong several times now, always love to get there. And hope to get there again soon now that, again, pandemic things have sort of subsided here. And we are used by libraries around the world, about 1,400 of them and counting, really any place that uses academic material. So that could be university libraries, hospitals, government facilities, corporations, and so on. And I mention that only because many of you may be students and graduating someday and moving into some corporation, and you may not be surprised that your new employer also uses these tools. So it's a great time to learn how to use them and use them to your advantage. So here's the three tools we're going to talk about. First is LibKey Nomad. That's a browser extension that finds full text from your library when you're searching on the open web, hence the name, where a user may be kind of nomadically wandering the web and not necessarily using library tools to start their research journey. Then we're going to talk about BrowZine. BrowZine is the first product that we released about 11 years ago, and it's evolved drastically since then. And it allows you to visually browse the latest issues of your favorite journals and then get notified by email when new articles become available. And that is useful both for brand new researchers as well as very experienced ones. And we'll talk more about that and do a live demo of that as well. And then finally, we'll follow up with libkey.io, which essentially is a raw exposure of the LibKey technology that you get to interact with directly. So if you have an identifier, DOI, PMID, we'll talk about what those are, you can get directly to full text at your library And we'll also kind of highlight one of the many integrations that various brand new kind of startup companies have used libkey.io for. So these may be other tools that you're going to be using that you find useful for information discovery, and to not be surprised that all of a sudden you're using libkey again in those contexts too. So let's start with libkey Nomad. This browser extension is available for all the major browsers: Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari, as well as the Chrome kind of variants out there, like the Brave browser, which is a Chromium inspired browser. It's very easy to download and install this and set it up for your library. And then it provides access to literally millions of scholarly articles and ebooks across hundreds of different publisher sites. And what's great about this is that it allows you to see what your library has access to without having to then pause what you're doing when you find that particular piece of material. And it will signpost, meaning a little button will appear, yes, this is available at your library right now, giving you great confidence to get there in a single click. So let's see some examples of this. So here's a very typical example. Maybe I was doing a Google search on something. Maybe a friend sent me a link to this article on this page, and immediately I'm at home. I'm not, I'm not at my university, and I see, oh, this looks very interesting to me, but it says buy article on the side. Okay, does my library have access to this? How do I navigate this, etc.? You can see that down at the bottom corner of the screen with Nomad installed and configured, that little button will pop up indicating you can download the PDF right now. Just click that button and you get right to the document. Depending if the article requires you to sign into your library, it will pop up a sign in automatically for you. Sign in just like you always would to your library or your email, SSO, etc. Or it might be an open access article, in which case there'll be nothing to sign into. You get access right away. But it's not just publisher sites, it's also third-party sites that you might be engaging with in your scholarship. So ResearchGate is a very internationally popular site. A lot of people use it to post things they're working on, get feedback and that sort of thing, or just collaborate. And they also have a very high search engine optimization, meaning that if you search for this topic, probably the top 5 results, ResearchGate is going to be one of them. So it's very likely you might encounter a page like this. And unfortunately, ResearchGate's download full text PDF is often a bait and switch. You can click it and it'll say, oh, do you know the author? You could email them. And it's, it's not very satisfying way to get to full text. But again, here, Nomad is identifying your library has access to this right now. Click here and you'll zip right off to the content. There's other sites where we do kind of more elaborate integrations. One of them is PubMed. So if you're involved in biomedicine or medicine in general, you're probably using this site to look for materials. And if you're used to seeing PubMed, you know it does not look like this. You usually get your citations, and then hopefully you came in through the right direction from your library website to hook in to their link resolver, which is a bunch of like library jargon kind of stuff. But usually what it turns into is a number of different clicks to possibly be very disappointed after 3 clicks. Oh, my library doesn't have this. Okay, let me go back and see what else I can find. Whereas what we're doing here is we're signposting again that availability. Download the PDF right now. We're telling you that at this point of discovery. We also added journal cover images and kind of squeezed them in there. And that just helps with the browsing sort of behavior that you're going to wind up doing, where certain journals that you know and recognize may jump out at you visually. So it's a nice extra indicator there. You'll notice that there's another kind of new button here, and we'll demo this live in a moment, called View Complete Issue. And that is a linkage between Nomad and BrowZine. And what it does is it takes you out of this search mode and brings you into BrowZine, which is a browsing system, hence the name, and can show you what that article in its original published context, meaning you might see a special issue where there's additional articles about that exact thing that you're interested in. So really, really powerful feature there in PubMed. Or Wikipedia. Wikipedia is often a place that a lot of us use to maybe get an initial grounding in a new topic or subject that we're not very familiar with, right? And we want to kind of just get a basic understanding. Many of those articles, of course, have references to primary materials or your primary science and so on where the articles are cited within the the article. Now, many of those may be just links off to some web page, but many others are going to be scholarly papers that are going to sit behind paywalls. So here again, Nomad's able to jump in, run through those references for you, and then you can link out directly to the content. And then finally, a very new feature we added just literally weeks ago is support for ebooks. We do this on a number of different publisher sites, but I think probably the more exciting elements are the places with that high Google search engine optimization, where these are sites that are going to come up very frequently, such as Amazon.com or Google Books. Wikipedia also is enhanced in this way, where you may find a book that is of interest to you and think, oh, okay, I have to buy this scholarly text for $90. Scholarly texts tend to be quite expensive. And at the bottom here, it says, University of Hong Kong has this book right now, and I can click and get access. Really, really powerful. So let's give it a go here and do a live demo of this. So I'm going to switch my screen share around a little bit, get over here, and pardon my little clicks here. Okay, so if you can go to libkeynomad.com, super easy to remember, it will reroute you to this page. And at libkeynomad.com, there's a great little video here, kind of gives you another reminder, highlight of what I just kind of talked about. And then at the bottom, we have direct links to all the major browsers. So I'm using Chrome right now, so let me give that a click. I've already installed it. I'm going to uninstall it real quick just to show you the whole process here. So I'm going to go add to Chrome. It's going to give me a little pop-up to say you want to do this, yes. And then once it installs, it says select organization. So I'm going to borrow University of Hong Kong here and select that. And boom, it's selected, I'm ready to go. That's it. That's the entire setup process. And once you do that once, you never have to do it again. So really, really powerful to be able to do this. An anonymous attendee just said, how much is it? It's already subscribed by all the universities in Hong Kong. So I am kind of selling nothing. You already have this. It's really just selling a use of this. So jump in there right now and try it out. So when I go into an example here, I'm using that Springer article example again. You can see where I'm asked to buy the article, and very, very quickly this appeared here in the bottom corner. You might have missed it. It just pops in really quickly. Download PDF. Oh, great. Immediately it reroutes me to University of Hong Kong's sign-in authentication page. And I am not a staff member at Hong Kong, so I cannot sign in here. But if I could, I would then sign in and I get right to the PDF. Now, you might see the screen a couple more times as I show you some other examples. Keep in mind that once you're signed in to the library's authentication, it's not going to keep asking you every article you try to get to. It's going to hold that in the browser and keep working for you. So let's go to another example here. I showed you some PubMed. So boom, there it goes. So it's raced through these 10 results, look to see what does Hong Kong have access to. So you can see it's a really, really powerful, easy to use sort of demonstration here. Now, I'm going to click on one that I know actually is open access. So you can kind of see what the actual kind of end-to-end looks like here. So immediately I get right to that PDF. Super easy, super slick. Now, if I close this guy out real quick and bounce back here, if I go to a different one though, that is not free, you can see it's the same experience I had coming from that Springer page, right? Rerouting to the authentication, and then I would get right into the document if I can, authenticate through University of Hong Kong libraries. So let's look at Wikipedia. So here's photovoltaics. So here's an article there. And you can see it popped up here, meaning that there's at least one article that it's linking me to. If I click down here, it's a little kind of Easter egg where we jump you down to the references. And you can see it's burning through hundreds and hundreds of different citations, trying to find everything it can that's available to. And again, click on the download PDF would do the same type of thing to get you to the full text. Now, one other thing I want to highlight here is that the citations also include the pop-up bubble, and you can see that link is right in that pop-up bubble as well. So the same sort of workflow happens right from there as well. Now let's do kind of a book example, for example. So if I go to here, and maybe I'm doing something very, very basic where I'm like solar power book. You can see it's totally staged, right? So I look this up here, and I get all this stuff thrown at me. Oh, okay, yeah, that book looks good. Yeah, I got to buy this because I have to like research this or whatever. So that pulls up. But then, as soon as this page kind of like loads in here, boom, University of Hong Kong has this ebook. Oh, well, fantastic, right? I'm not looking at the University of Hong Kong's library website, but because that pops up, all the routing is there, and you guessed it, got to sign in to get access to my ebook. A couple of other things that popped up. Someone asked, does it work for Chinese language book and journal articles? Not very many, because the main sort of requirement of this is using DOIs to be registered, and not so many Chinese journals have that, unfortunately. Edward asks, is this available on mobile browsers, iOS or Android? Not yet, Edward. We are tracking the Safari browser on iOS devices to see if some new versions of that might be compatible with this. We would have to build some extra things, but right now that is kind of the sort of plugins and extensions for mobile. It's a little bit in its infancy compared to desktop. So we're kind of waiting for some infrastructure things to evolve. Great question. And this one says, I tried to download Nomad on my iPad. Yeah, it's not going to work on your iPad right now. So don't try that yet. Thanks for your questions. All right. So that's the big highlight of Nomad. So if you have other questions on that, I'll be happy to jump back to Nomad later in the presentation. But let me skip over to BrowZine right now. So I go back over to our slides briefly. And I think I need to share the right thing. Let's get this here. Yes. Okay, here we are, BrowZine. So BrowZine allows you to browse a virtual newsstand of scholarly journals and read full text, very similar to what you saw in Nomad. So as I see the article, click, boom, right off to the material. It also features a very simple to set up current awareness system that was inspired by Apple's newsstand type product. If you're kind of a more seasoned researcher, that current awareness is probably going to be the thing that you're really going to be into. It's a really nice way to do it across publishers. So you don't have 17 emails coming at you all the time from different sources and different frequencies. Keeps things very consolidated for you. But if you're brand new to scholarship, you're a young student just getting into this whole scholarship universe, it's a great place to find top journals in particular areas that you don't know the names of yet. You can kind of see what are people talking about in this field. What are the hot things by browsing this material? It's things that a search box just can't tell you. So I'm going to show you how you can find that stuff out here. And then I'm going to highlight a couple of other features about citation management and how it connects to LibKey Nomad. So BrowZine, unlike LibKey Nomad, is available on iOS and Android. So those are available in the stores for both the tablet format and the mobile format. I'm going to show you the web application, which features all the same functionality just because it's easier to do in a webinar. But I encourage you to check out the mobile as well. So what BrowZine does then is it takes together tens of thousands of journals your library subscribes to and organizes them into a taxonomy. It is not a search system in the sense of looking for articles. The library already has a OneSearch or a Find It or however your library has branded that. This is not a replacement for that. This is a different modality. This is about looking up a particular journal and looking at that journal as a container of scholarly communication by that society or by that group of editors, right? We've categorized that material into 1,000 different categories arranged in 3 different tiers, and that's all humanly done. So there's a lot of sort of tender care applied to how we set this all up. But this is what it looks like when you get in there. I kind of clicked it through the biomedical and health sciences taxonomy layer, and now I'm looking at a second tier of categories here underneath that first tier of biomedical and health sciences. You can see that I can click over here and I can change the sort order from A through Z to journal rank. And that's using the Simago journal rank. It's just a general way of understanding what are the most kind of impactful journals out there. Some of you may be very familiar with the impact factors, that sort of terminology. This is a very closely aligned but different sort of ranking system. So don't be jarred by numbers and that sort of thing. More importantly is the ranking going from most impactful to least. And I can, of course, keep that sort as I go into lower and lower categories here. If I click into a title, I'm going to see a very normalized way to browse that journal. So rather than clicking off into dozens of different publisher sites where things can look very, very different and maybe have lots of ads all over the place and all kinds of things, this is a very purist kind of way of looking at that material where you're able to see the current issue and back issues. Browsing starts in 2005. Your library may have that journal going way, way, way back. Further than that, there's a button called See All at the bottom if you want to really go into the back file via your library. It also features articles in press. This particular journal doesn't participate in articles in press, but I'll highlight that in the live demo as well. You can then arrange your favorite titles in this, this area we call My Bookshelf. And so My Bookshelf requires creating a BrowZine account. I'll show you how to do that too. And once you have that BrowZine account, you can set this up. You can log in on multiple devices. It'll synchronize between those devices, including your mobile device. So after you've visually kind of aligned everything on your virtual bookshelf and you've got this on your phone, you'll see that everything just snaps together and lines up perfectly. Once you have those journals on My Bookshelf, we track those titles every day for new articles. And that's what you see these little bubbles here, 14, 16, 4. Those are new articles that have appeared that you have not yet viewed. Once you click in to look at those, you'll see they appear like little blue dots, maybe similar to an email program you might use. And when you are reviewing those, you can clear those dots by clicking on the article, or you can just say, I've reviewed the whole issue, I'm good, mark this issue read, or you can even mark the entire issue read. So you have lots of management possibilities for keeping current with your reading. A common complaint of researchers is there's just too much to keep up with. And they get all these emails and they're always inundated and they're not sure what they've read or what they have read and so on. This keeps you pretty organized because you can work at your pace. If you want to see what's new every day, good for you. If you want to do it every week, that works fine. Every month, that works fine. However you want to do it, BrowZine will keep tallying these up and let you know what you haven't seen yet. You can take articles from there and you can send them to what we call My Articles, which is a little area inside BrowZine that's just a very lightweight way to bookmark articles. Things you might want to look at later, you can build them into little collections like you see here. A common thing we see is that people might get notifications on their phone while they're riding the bus or whatever, and they're like, oh, I got to read that later. I don't want to read it on my phone right now, though. And they'll send it to a collection, which then they'll pull up on their desktop and click through when they're at the office and read it. Really nice way to keep a slick workflow. If you find an article you really want to hold on to, though, for the long haul, you may want to export it to a citation service like Zotero or Mendeley and BibTeX and so on. And that allows you to, of course, more permanently store it outside of BrowZine so that you can cite it in a paper later. BrowZine also includes weekly journal notifications. This is actually a brand new feature as well at the top of this year that we released. So as soon as you sign up for a BrowZine account and add some titles to your bookshelf, and we're tracking that, this process runs either once a week or every day if you'd like. It's an optional choice you can make. And we send you an email saying, hey, these 5 new journals have new articles this week. And when you click through on the read now, you get right to that journal level page and you'll see your blue dots appearing. So a really nice way to stay current. If there's nothing new for you to see, we won't send you an email. So it's very much just keeping you up to date in a very convenient way. So let us take a look. I'm gonna go into the share again here, back to our back to Chrome. Okay, pardon me, a couple of windows going here. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I've got Hong Kong University of Science and Technology that I'm borrowing for this demo. So like we showed here, if you know the name of a title and you just want to look it up directly, you can do that. So it looks up a journal, it looks up subjects, or even if you have an ISSN, because mostly librarians are looking at it by that, and I can get directly to a title. So if you've got a favorite title and you want to get right to it, no problem at all. But I can click back here and I can browse as well. So let's try like Earth and Environmental Sciences, for example. I get a really beautiful wall of titles here. Let's just try Aquatic Sciences. So now I'm at kind of the third tier of the taxonomy. You can see that this groups together all the third tiers together in all journals, or I can get even more specific. So it gets quite specific here as it goes. But let's turn on that journal rank feature. So you can see everything resorted and reflowed here. So the top journals available at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology are all here. And this is scoped to your library's collection. So you're not going to click into these and get a bunch of dead ends. These are things you have immediate access to, which is also a really, really nice feature. Let's just choose one, freshwater biology. And you can see here's that very consistent table of contents that I can scroll through. A couple of features to kind of highlight here. There is articles and press. We default it to the latest issue that was released. So you can see we have issue 3 in 2023 here. But articles and press, for those not familiar, are things that have not yet made it into an issue, but have been approved for publication. They've gone through peer review. The editors have decided that these will be included in the journal at some point in the next issue, usually 2 or 3 or 4 out. But it's a way to accelerate the scholarly communication process. So you get right to that material, and that's available here in BrowZine as well. If we can go in here, I did look at this article before this call here, so I know that this one's also open access. And you can see that LibKey and BrowZine are very knowledgeable about what articles are open access and which ones are not. Not just which journals, but which articles. So I can get immediately to that. I didn't have to sign into that. Other articles in this journal, probably I would have to sign in, but just so you can get an idea on that. Many journals support a one-click to PDF support. Some may not. Some may only have a link to article. But you can see that link to article is an option on all these as well. And what that means is that I'm getting to the article level, and I can maybe see additional things about this article that might be useful to me. Maybe there's an ability to download data sets or additional I don't know, versions perhaps. There's different reasons why you might want to see this version instead of going directly to the PDF. And you can see that Nomad is jumping in here saying, I can get you the PDF. So Nomad is kind of helping us out at the same time there to accelerate our linking. Now, let's try and go to my bookshelf and see how that works. Now, I'm not logged in yet, so it's introducing me to this feature and saying what you can do with this. So I can log in or sign up. To sign up, it literally requires only this information. We're very privacy minded, but of course, if we're going to send you emails with new articles, we need your email. That can be any email. It doesn't have to be your school email, your institution email, anything you'd like, no problem at all. And then you have to do a password and confirm it, and of course, agree to receive notifications and the privacy policy. Now, I have an account, so let me just log in here with that. Real quick. All right, and now I'm signed in. Boom, there's my stuff. Now I can, do a lot of different configurations here. It's got 4 different kind of rooms, as we call them here, different colors. You can see I built this up already over time, and you can see that as I move around, a little pencil appears. And so that means that I have a lot of customization that I can do with these different areas to help me remember what these different R's. We'll do that. So all those can then be synced to all the different devices I've got. All that is remembered by the system. Here you can see I've got some unreads on this title. So I can go in here and you can see those blue dots indicating, yeah, in the latest issue, I gotta keep up with what I'm doing. I can clear them like this, or I can mark the whole issue as red. I can also go back in here and I can move things around if I want. I can move it and it will ask me, where do you want to place it? I'll put it over there. And some people just have a really strong visual memory, which is why we built it this way. You may not remember the name of some of these journals that have very thick sounding names like Acta Histochenica, but you remember it's that blue one with the red squares and where you put it on the shelf. And so that's the important element there. Over here in my articles, you can see I have a chemistry favorites, general collection, read from home. I can make new collections here. I can add them to multiple collections. And you can see this is where I can export the citations to lots of different services, and I can reach out to those. Or I can do things like, copy the link to this article and so on. Now, I promised one other interaction, which is how it looks coming from over here. So I'm coming from Nomad and University of Hong Kong and view the complete issue. So I can kind of see what these look like with the originally published issue. So if I click this button, it's actually going to bring me into University of Hong Kong, not the institution I was just at, because that's what the Nomad version is. And you can see it highlights that article in its original context, and that is from 2020. So I can kind of jump back in time a little bit and kind of see what people were talking about at that time, see if there's thematic issue that I could benefit from, and so on. So a really, really powerful feature that connects these two services together as well. And you can see right at the top there, the apps are also linked here as well. So if you have an iOS device or an Android device, you can go in there and download these from the store. Again, these are free services that are all connected, and they're supported and subscribed by the libraries. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second because there were a number of questions, and then we'll go to LibKey.io. Okay, I missed one about Nomad. Does it work for booksellers page 2? Amazon, Book Depository, etc. We do have to program each individual site that it functions off of. So today that is Amazon and Google Books and Wikipedia and about 24 major scholarly book publishers. We may expand that in the future, but like Book Depository is not supported right now. Great question. Lewis asks, is there a manuscript PDF option for LibKey Nomad? What is it about? Yeah, great question. So, so Nomad can have kind of 4 different buttons that could appear. The most common one is just going to be download PDF straight away. And that means that you're going to click that and you're going to get the final version available from the publisher, which is what most users are going to want right away. Most researchers are going to want. Occasionally it might say article PDF, it might say article link, which means you're going to get to the publisher's page and have to click the PDF button yourself. That's usually a technical limitation from the publisher that they don't have a route for us to link directly to PDF. Occasionally though, you may also see something that's a manuscript PDF. And that means that we do not know how to link, or rather your library does not have a subscription to that piece of content, and the final version is not freely available. But there may be a version in a repository where it's gone through peer review, and so it has all the bona fides of being reviewed, by the peers, and the content is similar. Very, very similar, if not identical, to the final version, but it usually doesn't quite look the same. It hasn't gone through like the formatting that a publisher will do, but it's usually a pretty safe option to use instead. So that can appear in Nomad. Do you need internet access to access the app, or does the app download it for offline access? Great question. So on the app, to do all the interactions of bringing in new tables of contents, to download the PDFs and so on, yeah, you have to be online. But once you download that PDF and you add it to my articles, it is available for offline use. So that's a major benefit of the apps. Good question. And so the app generally will work. It will tell you, yes, you have no access except for the My Articles area if you're on a plane or something. Wing Wu asks, will journals and aggregated databases, EBSCO, ProQuest, be available on BrowZine? Only the journals on publisher websites? So the content on things like EBSCO and ProQuest and Ovid and Gale and so on, they are all made up of publisher materials that have been aggregated as a way of selling that material. And so, yeah, if you get access to that if you get access to that journal from EBSCO, but it's from a publisher that's supported in our ecosystem, we absolutely will display it, and the links will then result in a link off to EBSCO or to ProQuest or Ovid and so on. So yes, absolutely. It's more about, does the original content have metadata that we can support and display within BrowZine to be supported. Sylvia asks, do we need to sign up to BrowZine with our university account, or can be private? Can be private. It does not matter. You can use whatever you'd like. Thanks for that. And then, sorry if I missed it, does the BrowZine only include and display OA journals? Absolutely not. It is what your library subscribes to, as well as open access materials that your library has curated in the sense that they've included it in their holdings they've sent to us. So it doesn't include every OA journal out there because your library may decide these OA journals we don't want to show to our users for lots of different reasons. But it includes, I would say, majority subscribed in any given context because the majority of material is subscribed. How is LibKey Nomad different from HQL Search Assistant? It's not a great question for me, but maybe Chris could jump in and answer that, or anybody, sorry, whoever's from HQL to answer that question.
It's an interesting question. Tina, would you be able to address this one from Hong Kong U Libraries?
So Hong Kong U Search Assistant is similar to LibKey Nomad. The Hong Kong U Search Assistant was created by the Hong Kong U Libraries. It has a similar feature that once you, for example, if you access the Hong Kong U subscribed journal articles from a publisher's website, then you will be required to log in or pay for the access. But once you click on once you have installed Hong Kong U Search Assistant, you can click on that, then it will direct you to the Hong Kong U library authentication page. Then you can log in with Hong Kong U portal account. This yeah,
so does it
similar. Yeah, it's similar. However, for Hong Kong U Search Assistant, there is another feature. That means you can search within Hong Kong U Search Assistant for the library resources. So there is a search function as well.
Very cool. Very cool. And so does it usually it logs you in through the proxy so that whatever you're looking at, it kind of adds the proxy to that page? Is that what I understand?
Yes, the proxy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So there's definitely some similarities there. Probably the main other difference is that if you're looking at Springer, for example, and you use that tool, you get authenticated and you're able to access material on that page. One of the differences that the previous question was getting at was, what about materials on ProQuest or EBSCO or these aggregators? One of the kind of novel things probably that Nomad is doing there is that Nomad will look at the Springer page, say you have this article, but not here. You have it over there, at EBSCO, and will generate a route directly to that. So it's kind of supporting that aggregation in that sense. But that's a great question. Yeah, so definitely look at both those tools and kind of probably use them in different contexts. That's awesome. Good question. Thank you. So another question asks, very interested, but wondering whether the United States schools subscribe to these two websites or not. Yes, definitely. So about probably about 55% of our customer base is in North America between the U.S. and Canada. So about 800 or so here. UGC Libraries is automatically download these apps, or students need to download every day when we use Library PC.
Maybe I can address that, John.
Go ahead. Yes.
It depends on the I can only speak for HKBU Library. We have installed LibKey Nomad on all of our public PCs. Oh, but it does remind me, we did that some time ago, and you added support for more browsers. So I think it might only be available for Chrome on our PC. So this is actually a very good question because it reminds me we need to go and install this, the extension into Firefox and other browsers. And actually, I've asked our IT to do it campus-wide as well. So not just library PCs, but also in our Learning Commons and computer labs. So at HKBU, we're covered, but I can't speak for all UGC libraries. But certainly, we have representatives from all the university libraries here from the Learning Strategies Committee. So I think that's a very good thing for us to go back to our institutions and just make sure that we do have this extension installed on all of our library public PCs. So if not today, soon. Maybe I shouldn't promise on behalf of my colleagues, but I would highly recommend it. But HKBU for sure.
Yeah, and if just to add to that, what Chris was saying, there is an ability for libraries or for universities to essentially push the extension onto managed machines. That's in addition to individual users can go to libkeynomad.com and download it onto their personal device as well. So both ways are available for distributing this. Yeah, thank you for adding that, Chris. Someone asked, if I'm not in an institution now without school subscribers, is it possible to have access to these two websites with a personal account? Unfortunately, no. You do need access to an institution to utilize these, because as you saw in the demo there, as I clicked through, some of the things were open access, but a lot of them, stopped at a login for a library. And that's because it's utilizing the holdings of that library. So you do need to be able to authenticate to that. I will point out briefly though that if you are completely unaffiliated, Nomad does have a open access only mode. So there is a free open access version of Nomad. It's going to be a much more limited experience though. I just want to underscore it, right? Because it's only linking to materials that are open. But all the functionality that you saw in PubMed and Wikipedia and so on is there. You're just going to see a lot less links than if you were affiliated. And then I found that I don't have to go back to the university library to log in and search for the article, but to download it immediately with BrowZine on any website. Am I right? That is highly dependent on where you're at right now. So you may, if you're actually on campus and you're sitting on an IP range, there's a lot of magic the library kind of like works out that you might have IP authentication, meaning that if you're in that particular place, you're never going to see the login screen. So nothing's wrong. That could be exactly, things are working exactly as they are designed. So if it's working, don't worry about it. It's all library magic at that point. But when you're offsite, you definitely will see it. Angela asked, does BrowZine work with institutional VPNs during off-campus access? It does, absolutely. So depending on how your organization is set up, if VPN is the way that you are used to accessing things, then we have configured it for that as well. So absolutely. Does alumni affiliation work? I would reach out to your library or your institution's library that you're an affiliate of to find out, because sometimes there's different permissions and what you get access to and so on. We are not gating it though. So if your library says, hey, you have access to all of our resources, then yes, it will work for you. But so it's nothing on our end, but your library may have different rules for that.
Yeah. Could I just supplement that, John? Again, just speaking for HKBU Library, but I think this applies to most of our sister institutions as well. Alumni access, well, at HKBU you have to pay for it as well, but even then it's much more limited. And this is not because we want to deny you access, but our vendors usually charge a lot more if we want to include alumni in our remote access permissions. So the universe of content you can access is much more limited, even as a paying alumni member. So I think, John, correct me if I'm wrong, that would may cause some problems with LibKey Nomad because it just assumes you have full access. But so it might say, yes, you have access, but then when you try and log in, it will say, no, actually you don't. So but as John says, contact your own libraries for confirmation.
Yeah, and the library's authentication will essentially sort it out, at that point and will deny you or not. So, but we, like I said, we are not trying to gate that in any way. Can I add 2 universities to Nomad? No, sorry. You do have to choose one. But as you just saw, it's incredibly easy to change after the fact, right? You just pop back up there, change it if you want to see the view of a different library. I have institutional affiliation for more than one. Oh, is this the same question? Do I switch back and forth? Yes, you do. You can't load them all at once. Because essentially if you did that, we're talking about doubling and tripling API calls and that sort of thing. That would actually probably start to bog down your browser pretty well. So we want to keep things moving fast, ideally here. Okay, let's jump back in here. Thanks for all the questions. I really appreciate that. This is very brief, but let me just show you libkey.io. So libkey.io is the service behind the service. This is essentially the back end of what powers Nomad. And it's a way to allow you to essentially interact with the service very directly. So it looks very simple. You can look up things by DOI or PMID. These are very common identifiers for scholarly articles. They usually start with like 10 dot something / something is what a DOI looks like. And a PMID is just a number that's very unique to PubMed. So if you're a medical researcher, you're probably very familiar with the PMIDs. But what's neat about this is it's also a syntax. So quite literally, you can actually not even go to that website. You can just go libkey.io and then pop in a DOI or PMID after that. And what's neat about this is that it's a way to link you to content independent of what organization you are affiliated with. So you can send a libkey.io link to somebody at a different Hong Kong university that maybe you're collaborating with, et cetera, in this way. And as my demonstration shows between Sydney and Michigan here, they have totally different sign-in processes, and they actually get access to the content from different sources. Michigan from EBSCO, Wiley here for Sydney, but they get to the same piece of content. So this is, for the real kind of library geeks who are on the phone here, this is sort of like our attempt to improve upon DOI.org and its resolving scheme, to say, don't just resolve us to like the paper, resolve us to the paper we can get access to. And by incorporating our authentication, our entitlements, and the linking schemes necessary to do that. So let's take a quick look at libkey.io. Going to go to a live thing again here. There we go. Great. Yeah, let's go in here, and I'm going to pull up a little cheat sheet here that I have, because otherwise I don't walk around memorizing DOIs and stuff. So let's use City University this time. So over here I can change this. It remembered the last one that I used Nomad with. Excuse me. There we go. So it's in Hong Kong. And this also, I should note, has a unaffiliated as well for the person who is asking that they're not affiliated with the library. You can do this to just find out about open access materials. So I'm going to put in a PMID here, and boom, I get access. Now I should say I don't get access, but I get an answer. Yes, your library does have access to this. You can download the PDF right away. You can go to an article link if you want. You can see that article in context within BrowZine. So these options were all the same options you saw as if you looked at this article in BrowZine, or if you were to go to this article on the publisher site and see it in Nomad. I'm just seeing it much more directly here, because my point of starting my research journey might be that I'm looking at a paper copy of an article, and I see these DOIs and PMIDs in the citation. So I can jump right into the digital universe with that identifier very quickly here, and get access to that material. And you can see when I click into this, all the usual stuff happens. It looks like this one's actually open access, so I get right to the article immediately. Let's go back and try one other one. I can go find another article, and let me grab this one. This one's a DOI, that 10 dot. And you can see this automatically updates to find DOI. And whoa, this one's bright red because this article is actually retracted. So for the uninitiated, a retracted article is something that the publisher, after review from outside experts, other researchers who read the article and flagged it as being potentially not good science, generally, or fraudulent. You can see it says this is a duplication of an article. So someone found this somewhere else. The publisher decided to retract the material. This can go everywhere from scandalous, where it's just falsified data, to actually very innocent and noble for a retraction, where the original author finds when they're doing a follow-on paper that, oh gosh, I messed up that data. I didn't calculate that right. We shouldn't have this paper out there. So it can be all kinds of different reasons. So we partner with an organization called Retraction Watch, and they actually research the reasons for everything. Because again, not every retraction is necessarily bad. But what we do in LibKey is that if you link through on anything, this could be Nomad, this could be IO, it could be BrowZine, we're always signposting when things are retracted. And we're actually going to be expanding that indicator to expressions of concern, which is sort of like a pre-retraction sort of notification that publishers make. But a nice way of signposting that in different contexts. So just wanted to highlight that real quick. And the other element of this is that because this libkey.io technology is so easy to integrate, lots of startup companies are using this within their products. So this is a product called Kenius. It's fairly new. It does this really nifty feature where you can upload a document or just start typing a bunch of stuff, and it will try to match papers against that are relevant to you. Now it's going to be really mad at me for this tiny little search because it says I should add more text, but we're going to continue anyway just for purposes of demo. And it's going to come up with a bunch of papers that are similar to this paper. And if I click into these, you'll see a bunch of these all have this big button that says access full text. At which point I'll get to a page that is very familiar because it's the same thing as libkey.io. Boom. So it instantly looked at City University of Hong Kong. I didn't have to tell it that again. The browser remembered it. And yeah, I have access to this. That's tremendous. I can get access to this like right now, right? So very, very powerful, really, really nice to be able to do that within this context. So Kenius is one of them, but Semantic Scholar uses our technology, lens.org, a bunch that I'm going to forget here because we're doing a live demo, but there's a lot of newer kind of startups that are using this in their products. So I want to make you aware that that integration is happening as well. So I'm going to keep the live thing kind of up here and go back to the Q&A, but that is the end of my presentation. So we've kind of covered the three major bits that I wanted to make sure we covered. But to the Q&A, Lewis asks, is BrowZine include OA journal articles? Yes, it includes OA as well as subscribed materials. And then another anonymous question, I installed the extension, LibKey Nomad, and selected my library in the setting. Then I see a label provided by Lingnan University at the bottom of some pages, but not all. Is that normal? Yes, absolutely. So if it doesn't say download PDF at the bottom of that page, that means that our indicator is that you do not have access to this. So it's not going to appear necessarily all the time. It might also be on a page that we don't have an integration for. That's completely possible as well. If you have a specific question about one of these, you can always shoot us a note, support@thirdiron.com, with the page you're wondering about, and we're happy to kind of tell you about that specific example to help you out. And then one more anonymous question. PubMed, Wikipedia, yes. Wiley Online Library, Amazon, no. So I think
that was linked to the previous question.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. All right, very good. Yeah, so on Amazon, it really is going to depend on what which one what book you're looking at. If there's no indicator, that probably means that there's no connection between them. But I will tell you, we do have, this is a brand new feature we launched a few weeks ago. We did learn that there is we'll call it a bug. There's a small bug in the Amazon detection, where if your screen is a little small, see where the ISBNs are here? Sometimes it can get hidden if you have a smaller screen, and we're reading it from there. That was probably not the smartest thing. We probably should have read it from here, where it doesn't get small. So we're making that change. And so that can, in certain scenarios and blah, 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 can lead to a little bit of frustration of like, why didn't Amazon find this? But know that that's going to be silently, enhanced in the coming weeks here. So fear not. that should get better and better as well. But okay, I think that was the end of questions there. So if there are any others, I can hang out, but otherwise back over to you, Chris.
Well, thanks so much, John. That was great. You handled all the questions very dexterously. I think by my count, there was almost 20 questions there, which you integrated really well into the presentation. I learned, even though I'm a huge LibKey Nomad fan / user already, there were some new things there. I didn't realize it was on Amazon too. I thought it was. I mainly test it with Wikipedia, so that's really great. Yeah, to stop you from making an unnecessary purchase at the last minute. Hang on, this book I can get right now. So thank you so much. Let me just quickly. Oh, there's a few more questions coming in. Oh, they're mostly thanks. Participants thanking you, John, for your presentation.
Sure.
Someone's asking about the PowerPoint. John, will you be okay to share the PowerPoint itself? That we will be sharing the recording. Okay, that's great. So zip that over and we'll make it available to participants. An anonymous attendee, could you please explain again how the journals in BrowZine are connected to those in our libraries? Maybe let me try and explain.
Sure.
Essentially, if your library subscribes to a journal, they should be available in BrowZine. I mean, at its simplest, that's what BrowZine, as John was saying in his presentation, there are no dead ends. If you see it, if you see the journal in BrowZine, that means your library subscribes to it. I think one related point here is that we often get asked, and it relates to the question about Chinese journals. Often we will subscribe to Chinese journals. They won't be in BrowZine for technical reasons. You know, they just don't integrate as well into that product. But I hope that answers the question. Like, essentially, if you see something in BrowZine, that means your library subscribes to it or has access to it through an aggregator. And any article you find in BrowZine, you'll be able to read it. John, did you want to add anything to that, or?
No, that's perfectly well explained. That's great. Lewis, there's a few more questions though. Lewis says, is there an API for LibKey? There is. So there's kind of a combination with libkey.io. There's a number of different linking syntaxes. I kind of highlighted one there where it's like libkey.io / something, and technically that's kind of a public API, if you will. There is a more of a programmer level API though that requires a key and so on. If you're affiliated with the library, that is something we give to library staff if they want to build custom applications. You know, one that I can maybe try and show very quickly here. Let's see. So University of Southern California, for example, Southern California Library. They built a bento box, which is as I've come to learn is a little bit of an American term for this thing, but essentially is this sort of like search front end that's not using a commercial service, but you can see that this like kind of result set has all these like read articles, download PDFs on it. So they're using the LibKey engine to produce their linking on this custom interface for material. So that's available with our API. Essentially what it allows you to do is within your own application, do a Nomad-like function where you're calling out to our service to say, is there full text available for this thing? We send a JSON response and you can render that however you want. And of course, you're able to do that without a browser extension then, which is very cool. The libraries throughout Hong Kong who have integrated our API have done so in their Primo discovery services, and that's also using the same API. But you can do a lot of custom things with it. So yeah, there is one available. And Wingwu says, I can't believe JULAC consortium 10 years old. I know, right? It's crazy. It makes me feel old. And then suggesting iGroup contacting Chinese journal publishers to explore partnership. I appreciate that very much. We did have actually great success about 3 years ago working in Japan with I forget the name of their organization, but the large sort of scientific body there who works on publishing in Japan, and we're able to add a lot of Japanese material. So it'd be wonderful to work that out for Chinese journals too. Yeah. And then someone has an authentication question about HKVU. I think that's your problem now, Chris.
Yeah.
So
contact. I'll send them the link to Ask a Librarian. Yeah, contact our information services directly, and we'll sort out. That's probably on our authentication and nothing to do with BrowZine, I imagine.
No worries. Okay, well, great. And Cheryl's raising her hand.
Oh, someone raising their hand.
Oh, that's not one of our folks. Okay, never mind that.
Oh, okay, sorry. Gosh,
all good.
But it looks like we've gotten through all of these many questions. So thank you so much again, John. I really appreciate it. I know it's getting late for you. So we are at the end of our advertised hour. So I'll just convey our sincere thanks on behalf of JULAC one more time. And I'm sure everyone is eagerly downloading the browser LibKey Nomad extension as we speak.
Fantastic.
But as that last question was pretty good. Yeah, if you do encounter any hiccups along the way with authentication or whatever, yeah, just contact your library's help desk and we'll sort you out. All right, we'll leave it there then. Thanks everyone for attending, and I hope you found it useful. All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.